my fellow Americans. If you think you know politics, think again. I'm Michael Cohen, and every week on When You Know, we're pulling back the curtain on power, politics, media, and the people making headlines. On my new WABC radio show, you'll hear conversations from names that you know. People like Jerry Falwell Jr., Anthony Scaramucci, Alan Dershowitz, and many, many more. Maybe, just maybe, we'll even hear from the president. No scripts, no spin, just real conversations with people who were in the room where it happened. And trust me, we've got some very big surprises coming. Look, I've spent years at the center of politics, controversy, and power. I know the players, I know the stories, and now I'm bringing you inside. When You Know, Sundays at 5 p.m. on WABC Radio, and When You Know Unleashed, wherever you get your podcasts. Because with me, you never know who's going to show up.
Listen, all you New Yorkers. Taxi!
Okay, man, we're looking around.
This is the 77 WABC minicast.
We're back with Jake Novak here on the left versus the right. And Jake has prevailed. He was trying to make the points about President Trump and the hate that he ignites and the way people just seem to lose their minds when his name is even mentioned. And let's hear a little more about that.
Yeah, we were talking off the air about how, look, I understand that there are times when President Trump baits these people who hate him. He'll say something that I think he absolutely knows this triggers the folks who are angry at him. And in a perfect world, who am I to say how someone else should act, especially the president? But in a perfect world, I wish he didn't do that. At the same time, and this is something I realized in 2016, that the pugnaciousness of President Trump is kind of an either or kind of thing. In other words, somebody who fights too much is the kind of person who's going to fight when it's appropriate. And it feels like the people who don't fight, if you either fight too much or you don't fight at all. And I'll take the person who fights too much over the person who doesn't fight at all, if that makes any sense.
And I think in his case, you never really know how much he has ignited it. I think I told you in a previous show about the time that I was telling him that an employee of mine who he didn't like, how I should have gotten rid of him, which is what Trump suggested to me at the time. And we started trading, stories about what this guy was. And both of us had our hands raised. Why am I raising my hand now? None of you on the radio can see it.
He's raising his hand, folks.
But I was gesturing, he was gesturing. And all of a sudden, the president grabs me by the shoulder and turns me in the same direction where he is. And he says, no, everything's fine. It's an old friend who died. We're talking about an old friend. And I think that's when I realized, concurrent with all these other features, he has an incredible sense of humor.
Yeah.
Because he turned that situation where I think the media people thought we were arguing, and he turned it completely around in a second.
I think every person who grew up going to church or synagogue regularly in this country will know what I'm about to say or be able to relate to it. I never had one of those moments as a journalist where I would hear President Trump speak even before he was president and look to myself and say, who talks like this? Because in every synagogue, I'm convinced every synagogue and church has guys about Trump's age sitting in the back who are like that. And if you're a kid who grew up going, they always were willing to talk to you. I used to sit in the back with them. Now, my dad was the rabbi, so they always wanted to kind of kibitz with me.
Right.
But we talked sports, we talked other things, and they were blustery. They were arrogant, basically, but they were, at the end of the day, they had a heart of gold. They gave me candy. They wanted to talk about baseball and football with me. They thought it was great when I would predict games as a 9, 10, 11-year-old, that kind of thing. And I'm used to that cadence. And I think, and by the way, I had a very lucky upbringing in that I really had exposure to people of all ages my entire childhood. Most kids don't, unless, other than their grandparents, if they're lucky enough to see them regularly, don't really see people any older than their parents. And they don't know how to communicate with them. I had as many elderly friends as young friends as a kid. The Golden Girls wasn't just like a show about, the Golden Girls was like, oh, that was like a show about my circle when I was a kid. I was like, let me watch this show. I know those characters. So that's one of the things, too. Like, I understand that cadence. It's a Queens, New York kind of bravado, but without being really that harmful. And because I remember looking around the newsroom at CNBC when President Trump was first running and seeing all these younger journalists there who were just aghast. They couldn't believe they'd never seen anyone talk like this or act like this. And I said to them, all of them, I said, you guys didn't ever go to church, did you?
No.
And they were like, no. I was like, okay, well, yeah, I knew that about you already, just because you just don't know. There's a character in it. It doesn't matter how wealthy the congregation is or where it is in the country. Every congregation, church or synagogue, has the crazy guy who comes or crazy woman who comes, has the blustery guys who sit in the back, and has the busy. I mean, these are all like characters. You could really why there hasn't been like a really good church or synagogue based sitcom, I don't know. Probably because the folks in Hollywood can't relate, but I grew up with those people.
They can't.
Yeah.
And actually, there were a lot of incidents that occur, and I didn't go to church that much. My mother was a Baptist and my father was a practicing Catholic, so I couldn't wait because they'd go to church in different places.
So you were a Baptist.
Yeah, I didn't have to listen to either one of them. But the issue was that a lot of things will come up in a church where they wouldn't come up, let's say at a school, and it becomes kind of an issue, and where there's this kind of scoffing at the older people and that sort of thing. It can be injurious at times, because a lot of times people, they don't intend to do it, but they bring their problems to church.
Yeah. Or again, the just humorous things that happen. I mean, there was one Saturday morning where one of the married couples, elderly couples, came into the synagogue, and the man's teeth were very small and the woman's teeth were very, very large. And my dad and I just looked at each other and we said, they switched their dentures. And they grabbed the wrong dentures this morning. Those kinds of, that doesn't happen in school. You don't see that in your corporate life. Come on, this is a piece of Americana I just gave to you, and you missed that out. You missed out if you didn't go to services regularly. That's all I can tell you. You thought I was going to come on and be an evangelizing Jew or something like that and talk about. I can do that on another program. I'll do that on the Reverend the Rabbi. But on this program, I'm going to tell you that if you go to services regularly, you will encounter these characters. And if it's a good church and a good synagogue, there will also be good refreshments afterwards. So, I mean, what else could you ask for?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think that's what got a lot of people to go after they, were 9 and 10 and they had trouble with sitting through the service. But once you hit about 14 or 15, you can get a great meal over there. All you have to do is, listen to the minister or the rabbi, and when they're done, they go in the back and it's a festival. I
was pounding down Manischewitz at 8, 9 years old. 5, 6 cups at a time, those little baby cups. But still, it would have been a 12-step program, but they left me out of it. So.
I guess so. You never overindulged.
No, not on that kind of stuff. Although, by the way, and this is a great urban American story. Now, people don't know about this anymore because sadly we've moved on to harder drugs and things. But they used to have something in America's urban world called winos. People who would sit on the corner and drink cheap wine. And one of the wines that was really popular with winos was the kosher wines, because the kosher wines used to be, they have wonderful wines now from Israel, by the way, which win awards. Don't believe all the bad stereotypes. But in the old days, the American-made kosher wines were very sweet. And winos like sweet wine because you could chug that down faster than, something that was a little bit more palate friendly. And so one of those kosher wines was called Magen David, which in Hebrew means the Star of David, but the street name was Morgan Davis. And this is a great story. So the label on Magen David wine was a bunch of people sitting around at a table with prayer books doing the grace after meals. It's a long grace. The grace after meals in a Jewish meal is long, so you need to have the book. You can't memorize it. So I remember there was a liquor store owner in my neighborhood in Virginia when I was growing up, Jewish area of Norfolk, Virginia, who said there was a guy who used to come in all the time and say, I want that Jewish wine, Morgan Davis. And God, he didn't know what it was. That one where the label is everyone sitting around the table playing cards because they had the little prayer books. He thought they were playing cards.
And because he saw the street sign.
Yeah. So he saw, So, I mean, there used to be winos. That used to be a thing. And so if you're wondering why did these putrid, super sweet wines, and there's not enough Jews in America to keep these businesses alive? Well, in the 50s, 60s, and in the 40s, winos were buying the kosher wines. Now you know. Where are you going to learn this anywhere else? You know?
Nowhere, but on the left versus the right. We find data and make inquiry in places that other shows wouldn't dare to. But so in that regard, there clearly seems to be a disengaged country right now to some extent, and that brings me to our third personality of the week, Mr. Graham Plattner, who from day to day has no idea what he's doing. Tomorrow, Monday, I would say he's supposed to be getting out of the race, and what an abomination! Because the real problem, as I see it, Jake, is not to blame the Democrats who are there right now, who tried to get him out, but to actually blame the people who opened the door so he would get in.
Yeah. But first of all, I mean, we've talked about this guy before on this program, and one of the things I said several weeks ago was and I don't think Republicans are going to do this. I didn't think it then, and I still don't think it now. But I thought I openly said on this program and others, if you're a Republican or you're conservative in America and you're not prepared to use the term Graham Plattner as often as the other side says things like January 6th are very fine people, then you're not really equipped for today's politics. I don't love that, but the Republicans and conservatives should say the name Graham Plattner. That should be out of their mouth every single day for years to come, really, because he's not getting out fast enough. The Democrats will say, well, we did force him out. No, you didn't. Not in time, not after you were given a lot of warnings, and not before Bernie Sanders and Liz Warren and Ro Khanna went out of their way. I mean, literally went to see this guy and to prop him up and to say the nicest things about him. And of course, he was already dropping in the polls. The last poll I saw a few days before things started to go really south for him, he was only up 2 points by Susan Collins. And Susan Collins has come back from bigger deficits than that, by the way, in her Senate campaigns.
In her Senate campaigns, absolutely.
So, and he had been up by 9-10 points comfortably a couple of months ago. So, no, I do not allow them to use this. Well, we did finally, once we saw something was more credible, we stood up. No, you saw the polls going down. And more importantly, how you could think this guy was an acceptable candidate in the first place, polls or no polls, is, I think, something I didn't say before. I think this is part of the cynical, misbegotten notion of what America is by so many people in the Democratic Party. And I'm not going to excuse a lot of establishment Republicans also. I think that basically the political class looks at the rest of America as a bunch of
idiots.
Yeah, idiots, racists, fools. And so they figured this guy looks like one of them, even though he's not. He went to Hotchkiss. I mean, Hotchkiss is it's harder than most colleges. It's an incredible school. I should only have gone there, right? His business was basically owned by his mother. He's a rich kid. No, he's not. But they thought he looks like this. He's disgusting. And that's what America is. And, this is what frustrates me tremendously. It's always frustrated me about the misbegotten conceptions of who Americans are. That's not who Americans are. I'm sorry. I don't care how much you think you know about America. That's not who Americans are in either party. I will say that. And they deserved many, many decades of punishment for backing this guy.
Yeah. So I want to ask you a question. And it is... in the time that we've worked together on this show, I have noticed, but I've never really raised it, that when you make a strong point, you also will cover the part that you probably didn't want to address it in that situation. In other words, having some fairness on the other side, such as a few minutes ago when you said, and it even goes on in some of the bastions of the Republican Party. Most people wouldn't have said that.
Well, Thank you for noticing. That's important to me. But by the way, it's really wonderful that you asked that as we come out of this Graham Plattner thing, because what a number of people were decent enough to say was, well, here's where the Democrats got themselves into trouble. They were only interested in winning. They don't have any principles. They don't have any beliefs in things. It's just about winning, and that's how they got himself into trouble with this guy, because when they saw that his polls were strong, when they were strong, they were like, whatever, we'll just win. And we don't. And to me, listen, you know what? I see this in my personal life. There's a lot of people who say like, Jake, I see you're a conservative. Does that mean you're MAGA? Because if I tell them that I voted for Trump, and what I usually say, and this is 100% true, I support the vast majority of Donald Trump's policies. Do I know the man? No. Will I ever know him? I don't know. Maybe. Actually, now that I'm working here, it's possible one day I'll get to, but I doubt it. That's not, and I've never felt that supporting personalities was the way to go, or being on a team. Another thing I say all the time, Governor, is I'm a member of the oldest surviving cult in the world. I gave it the office. I'm not joining another one. And by the way, my oldest surviving cult in the world, every time a human being has been venerated as being divine or almost divine, it doesn't work out too great for us at all.
No.
So it's very much against our beliefs. And that's not to mitigate what Christian. I'm just saying that when Jews try to go against who we are, we're either not going to be Jews anymore, or non-Jews will see that we're faking, like they did in Spain and places like that, where Jews they were trying to pretend to be Christian for a while. That didn't work out, So my point is, that's where it comes from. I feel like I've been given a very healthy, because I'm not a mean guy. I'm not like a cynic. But a very healthy, doubting reaction to being on teams for the team's sake. Listen, if I like someone's policies, I will be all there for them or her. Absolutely. But that doesn't mean I'm signing up for that team next time before I see the fine print. That's all. And I think that I wish more Americans were like that. This isn't a team game. The only team game we're on is the America team, or the team of right versus wrong. And too bad that people are literally in this world where, if Trump says it, no matter how good it is, they're not going to support it. Or if Trump says it, it's always right, no matter how wrong it might be. That's a real bad way to go through life.
So someone sent an email to my wife, Mary, this Friday morning. And it was an article from a staff member of Vito Fossella,
okay,
who I know very well. I'd say, cross the aisle on a short list of 5. I like him. And the article was about my maturation and coming to understand what the dangers of socialism are. Mm. And the person was writing that, this is really an example for other Democrats, and that other Democrats should follow some of the statements that I've made and criticisms I've made of the party and that kind of thing. And obviously, there's no reason that I wouldn't like that, But there's a part of me that wants to remind myself that I'm still a Democrat. Mm. In other words, some of these conversations that maybe I've been more public about, I probably should have had privately with the individuals who, were suggesting this. But there is a point that you don't want to become the poster child for, everything that went wrong,
right,
with the party. And thinking about that, I was, just able to recognize that there is such a problem with these people who are bastardizing principles and ideals and acting the way they do, and they think they're going to be successful at the polls. I am 100% sure that they will not be.
Well, let's begin Jake Novak's Help David Paterson Back to the Democratic Party therapy right now.
Okay.
And one of the things that I think I could help you do is remind people that there are some instances where government management is necessary. So I would start with, this wouldn't get people's fire, but I would start with, for example, urban planning, roads, highways, and things like that. Now, I am a huge fan of privatized rail lines. You know, there's one in Texas now. The Bright Line in Florida is wonderful.
Yeah.
But there still needs to be some government oversight. They can't build the railroad through my living room. You know, I need to have there has to be some planning involved. So that's one thing, although that isn't exactly going to get people marching in the streets. But it could be one place where you work. I mean, but for me, I guess my favorite thing would be to do something that I've always said to you, and I've said it on this program, that we have the advocating for minorities in this country now incorporates being more in favor of law and order, understanding that the victims of the crimes that are being committed by our system now, where people are getting let out with no bail and things like, they're not robbing the people in Park Avenue. They're not. And when they do, believe me, it'll be a national story. They're killing the people in Soundview in the Bronx. They're killing people in rougher areas of Brooklyn. It's not the white rich people. I think that there's some misbegotten leftist rich kids who think they're letting out the jails and now Whitey's going to get it. Like, Whitey ain't getting it, okay? I'm telling you right now, it ain't happening. And this would be great. I would love for Democrats to basically say, I'm the real advocate for minorities here because you guys are killing us.
That's exactly right. That it is. And we're going to come back with my response right after we break again to give both of us a chance to figure out what we're going to say here on WABC, The Left versus the Right. You're with Jake Novak and David Paterson. We'll be back.